Hello, I'm Wormspawn. I used to stream on Twitch, don't really do it so much anymore. I might try and pick it up again later on, but that's not what any of this is about. I decided that I would try and do a bit of a demo to highlight some of the different things primarily about your audio setup for when you try and use stuff like OBS for streams. I have one particular filter in mind that I wanted to try and highlight in this video, but as a kind of a background up to all of this, as a kind of a bit of a technical foundation to all of this. The way I use my audio for my streams is that with OBS, it has two default channels, and those are desktop audio and mic/aux. Now, those two audios exist in every scene you create, and whatever you do in one scene will affect that audio channel in the other scene. So let's say you wanted to try and do a starting screen. I'm just going to switch over to what I used to have for that. Okay, so that was my original, that was my starting screen. And I was actually talking on the mic, but you could not hear me because the way I have my starting screen set up is that both the desktop audio and the mic aux audio, those audio channels are disabled on all of my scenes. But what I had instead was my own customed game audio, which is essentially system audio, my computer's actual audio, and then my mic audio. To just show you real quick, I'm just going to turn off. Wait, no, I'm just going to do this so that way you can hear. That's my system audio. I'm going to mute this. And that is still my system audio. I'm still hearing it, but you aren't. So that's my system audio. The only thing that was playing during the opening scene was the standby music. So that way you can have a lead up into your stream, and you don't have to worry about anybody hearing anything that's coming through on the mic. You don't have to worry about people hearing whatever game happens to be loading up on your computer. You don't have to worry about computer sounds at all. It won't pick up as long as you don't use the default desktop audio and the default mic's aux audio. And you just leave these out of whatever scene you're setting up. So when you go to set up a new scene, you'll just have whatever audio input device or input capture. You'll just make sure you don't put those in. You don't put your mic audio in, and you don't put your computer audio in. So there's that, just as a bit of a foundational thing. And again, not trying to talk down to anybody, not trying to, oversimplify things, but I am trying to point out things to people that may not be familiar with the program and may have missed things here and there. Just, didn't realize how this stuff works every now and then. So that's how I have that set up. Don't mind all these extra channels. This is just part of what I have. The only thing this is part of what's all going on in this layout as to why all of these channels exist. But the only channels you're concerned about are game audio, in this case, and mic audio. Those are the only two channels you have to worry about, unless you're having a standby music like what I've got playing now. So now that I've gone and said all of that, now I'm going to go into the particular filter that I had in mind to try and highlight. Now, I have my mic audio my mic audio has a noise suppression just in case there's any kind of residual background noise going on, so I don't want that picked up. I've got my gain, just in case my voice is a little too soft. Every now and then I'll still be, you know, somewhat audible, somewhat still within the yellow to red range, but not actually capping out or peaking. And then just in case I get a little loud, my voice does actually have the limiter filter that I was planning on actually really showing off. Now, this is the limiter filter. I'm going to turn it off, and my voice is probably end up going to peak. So here's my voice without the limiter on. Hi, everybody, and there goes my peaking. Yep, I just peaked right out in that channel. Obviously, I don't normally talk in that loud, but, you know, if I did end up talking that loud, obviously I would end up going over the threshold, and that could cause, you know, bad things. It's not very good recording quality kind of thing. Right now, I also have similar filters going on for this. Well, I mean, I don't have the limit. I did have a limiter on this. But ultimately, it's kind of pointless to put it on there because right now this audio is down to -30. The only reason why I think this is currently set up this way is just in case I wanted it for the opening scene. I don't really worry about that anymore because I haven't streamed in a while. So, but right now, what I'm actually planning on showing off to you is. I don't want to close that. How I've got it set up for my computer audio. Now, cases where the limiter would come in handy a lot. If you can't already think of situations where it would or wouldn't come in handy so far. Situations where it would come in handy is if there happens to be some kind of abrupt noise that goes on your stream. If it's an abrupt noise that has to come out of your computer, like if it's a computer notification, or if you happen to have some kind of Streamlabs setup that plays through your computer to play audio to the stream, and that's louder than you thought it would be. This limiter would come in handy in that it would cut that off. Cuts it off short at whatever decibels you want it to stop at. And it doesn't really affect too much of the audio quality. So long as there's still somewhat of a dip, I don't think it really matters in terms of dynamics of the audio. But that's something that you can experiment with yourself. But now I'm going to load up a game that I haven't turned down the audio for this game at all. It is currently at maximum volume, so the volume that the game is playing is the volume that would play through to the stream if I didn't have these these filters on. So I'm going to turn these filters off. And again, the one filter was supposed to reduce the gain, just make the game quieter, and then this other one was just supposed to just completely cut it off entirely. Now, yeah, at this point, you know, I might be occasionally competing with how loud the game is going to be. So you can actually see the game. So yeah, occasionally I might actually start fighting with how loud the game is, based on the current settings. And you could simply solve that by putting on a gain filter and reducing the gain of the actual game. I need to really kind of differentiate how I'm pronouncing these words because it sounds like I'm repeating the same word. But what that doesn't do for you is if it turns out that the game is a little too loud for you while you're listening to it, you're gonna have to turn that down, and that'll turn down the audio that goes to the stream. And especially if you've got a negative filter on it, it'll make it even less loud. for the stream to be able to hear, and soon enough, they're not going to be able to hear anything. But this is the difference between just using a gain filter and using the limiter. Now with the limiter, no matter how loud the game is, whether or not you need to decrease the volume, whether or not you need to increase the volume for what you're hearing, it'll always cut off at where you want it. And of course, I can bring this up, make it so that way the gain, so that way the threshold is louder if I want it to be. You could see how it slowly went up from 25 to 20. And now it's just kind of sticking at that 20 spot. And eventually this will recycle back into the intro video so we can do a bit more testing again. But what's more is that even if I reduce this game volume, switch over to there. I've turned down the background music. The game is still, you know, it's not quite just staying regularly at that -20 mark. However, not what I wanted to do. Volume mixer. I'll just turn that off real quick. And yeah, my system sounds would still kind of, would normally, if I turn this off, my system sounds would normally, yeah, my system sounds would normally go way above that, but because of the limiter, it doesn't. So let's turn this all back on. Come on, bring me back. So that's for the most part. That's really what I wanted to kind of show off. And if you've been you know, kind of listening to how it affects the audio, even when it stays at that negative point, it doesn't really, you know, kind of crush the audio. I personally thought that maybe it would, but having listened to it a couple times, it doesn't really seem to do that so much. You still get a bit of the dynamics that's going on. But in this way, if it turns out the game is a little too loud for you in your ears, for the most part, it'll most likely be that kind of volume. It'll probably still be staying at a decent volume for your stream. If it turns out you need to make it louder, you still don't have to worry about it actually affecting your stream audio too much. Like I reduced all the sounds to this down to, you know, half the original length, the original sound, and it's still staying at that 20 mark. I'm gonna bring down the background music again. I can still hear the background music okay, even in my ears. Now it's starting to compete with the standby music that I've got. But I mean, I could stand to have this turned up a bit more. But the point is that it should still be pretty well hearable to the stream because of how everything is set up. So, just as a bit of a demo, kind of pointing things out that people may or may not have seen, try and help people to somewhat understand what's going on. And I hope this video was helpful to you. And I don't know, maybe I can try and demo some more stuff later on. But thank you for joining me. Sorry if I was a bit cringy as far as just doing this kind of off the cuff, no real script. This is actually my second take trying to do this. But I will see you later.